Welcome to Naperville Notables. I'm Liz Spencer. This is an occasional series by Naperville Community Television where we introduce you to people making a difference in Naperville. Today we're going to talk with President Hal Wilde. When you arrived here in 1991 and walked around campus, did you ever imagine you'd be here 22 years later and what this place would look like? Did that cross your mind of the possibilities?
No. I don't know. You know, when I came, I told the Board of Trustees I thought that no president should stick around more than about 10 years. And so I wasn't looking out 22 years. And I believed then, I still believe that the most important criteria for somebody who's a president is that they be bringing value. And my judgment was that after a certain number of years, you probably, the value you're bringing diminishes. And so of course, when I was here 10 years, I sort of thought, gee, I can still bring some value for a few years more. And fortunately, I've had 22 wonderful years as part of the campus. And yeah, in a lot of ways, the campus itself has changed. I think that's true. Having said that, in many ways, the campus is the same campus it's been for 140 years, even though we're 151 years old, but 140 years here in Naperville. And you see that. So many of the things we've done have been renovations. Mm-hmm. And basically, we've taken buildings built, in some cases, in the 19th century or in the early years of the 20th century, and we've made them 21st century buildings. And what that means is that the campus looks like it's, in some ways, it looks like it has always looked. But in other ways, yeah, these facilities are now able to accommodate the needs of 21st century students, ranging from technology needs to access needs. And you know, did I envision all that? I don't know what I envisioned 22 years ago. I was just concerned about surviving through the next week and the next month and so on. But over time, yeah, a kind of vision emerged thanks to our board of trustees and thanks to a lot of great faculty and staff. And I could say I'm pleased with the ways the campus has evolved over those years.
Well, I think part of the charm, and you mentioned, is that you have renovated the buildings, and that keeps the charm. And I think about Old Main in particular, that North Central is very fortunate to have the original buildings. So many of them are lost, and that is the building.
Well, it was, yeah. It's interesting.
The shell of the building.
People. I mean, I'm, you know, in my last months, I'm sort of going through a lot of, I'll call my farewell tour. People sort of, you know, saying nice things and sweet things, but they tend to think. I mean, we've done like 15 buildings in the last 15 years, but in my first 7 years, we really didn't do any major buildings. And the first project we did was the renovation of Old Main. And even that was a struggle in a lot of ways. And you may remember there was a fire during it and so on. So, but in a lot of ways, it set the tone for, I think, that what's happened. And again, the challenge has been to how do you update a historic campus with reverence for what it's been, and at the same time kind of creating 21st century facilities. And for the most part, I think we've been pretty successful. You know, in our first year or two, we talked about having a pedestrian spine in the center of campus. And we talked about having some kind of South Campus entry relating to the Riverwalk. And you know, we just completed those this in the last few months, and they're really quite wonderful. But it's a reminder too that things don't happen overnight. You don't snap your fingers and suddenly they appear. It takes a long time. And one of the lucky aspects of being president as long as I have been is that a lot of these great things have happened because the time has passed, and as I say, it takes a long time for things to occur, but they have occurred, and it does please me when I think about our original plans back in 1992, 93, whatever, for a pedestrian spine, that today I could walk to this interview and up a pedestrian spine, and that's taken just 20 years since then.
But it shows perseverance, because I think sometimes we're such an instant society that we just assumed it was instantly there. But
yeah, well, it's true, and I think part of the challenge of a historic campus in a historic neighborhood, which we are, which we cherish, is to figure out ways to constantly change and evolve and improve without turning our back on the neighborhood around us. And this house that we are doing this interview in is which was given to us by Bart and Maricela Madden, wonderful, wonderful people, is a kind of tribute. They did this wonderful restoration of the house and gave it to the college. And I think it was partly because they believed that the college would respect its history and its heritage and would sustain it. And that's what we're trying to do. The Old Main renovation that we started with is a perfect example where we are trying to maintain something that's been an icon for not just our alumni, but for the community for 141 years. At the same time, hey, it's got to be handicap accessible. It's got to be wired appropriately.
It's got to have the internet.
It's got to have all the things that people need in the 21st century. And we've done that with the old seminary building at the north end of campus. We've done that with the old Grace Evangelical Church, which we acquired and which we've renovated, and includes a great theater. We've done that with the old boiler house, which we've made into a cyber cafe, and and all of these facilities work, I think, in a lot of ways, maybe not in all ways, and they blend the past and the present and the future in a nice way, and that's, when you got 151 years of history behind you, that's a good thing. We want to tell people that that history is not some sort of weight on our back. It's a wind on our back. It's pushing us forward in a very positive way.
Well, and I think the college, we talked earlier before cameras rolled about having an archivist and valuing that. And one of the things when I was doing the documentaries for North Central College that I really enjoyed being able to do was to read President Rawls' letters, because it was such a window into the man and his charm, and they were handwritten, and I in preparation for this interview with you, I enjoyed being able to go to the YouTube version of you in your speeches that are up online and hear your voice. It's sort of, I could hear President Rawls' voice in his letters, what I imagine his voice to be, but now I got to see your speeches. And I think in some way, your speeches are like his letters that you have left along the way. How do you think that's framed, what you're doing? I really enjoy your writing. I'm envious of it, to be honest with you. I really enjoy it.
You're very kind, but when I completed my doctorate 40 years ago, my first job, first real adult job, wasn't in the academic world. It was as an aide to the governor of Wisconsin, and I was writing his speeches, among other things, and writing a lot of speeches. And so writing speeches and writing what some would call, persuasive speech or persuasive writing has been something I've done really my whole life.
You have a nice way of tapping into the emotion, though. You're
Well,
persuasive, but you tap.
oh, I don't know if tap. Some would say I sledgehammer.
I don't know. I think tap's a nicer way to put it.
It's interesting at this point as we move out of the president's house at North Central, where my wife Benna and I have lived for the last 21 and a half years. We're going through a downsizing process and a shrinking process, and one element of that is essentially dumping huge file cabinets full of stuff from various stages of my life and her life and our lives together. And I mean, this goes back 40-some years of marriage. And so it is causing me to do something that I never do, which is causing me to sort of look backwards. Mm-hmm. Normally I just basically look forward. And looking backward, there is a kind of continuity in the role of in all the things I've done in my life in terms of writing, going back to when I edited my college newspaper, and even going back, I have papers that I wrote in high school haven't helped me, and I kind of see this, but I see a certain continuity in terms of finding my own voice and then figuring out how you express that voice in writing, and some of the speeches I've given at North Central, I would I think are kind of worthy of review at some point. Probably there's a lot of letters and fundraising mm-hmm. appeals I've done that are more worthy of more worthy of review. But people have different skills, mm-hmm. and it happens that the things that I've kind of been best in, going back to high school, involve writing. Other people have other leadership qualities, but because writing has been something that's been important to me over the years, you use that, mm-hmm. and I've used that as president, mm-hmm. obviously. Other presidents have, as I say, other strengths, and mm-hmm. No one should expect every president to spend as much time on writing and editing things as I have. Mm-hmm. It's probably a very poor use of most presidents' time, and it happens in my case because it's something I'm probably a little more attuned to. That it's been a good use of my time.
Well, it's been enjoyable. I think you've been a very effective communicator. You mentioned living on campus in the president's house. How has that been special for you and Benna? And very different. You've been in a fishbowl for 22 years.
Yeah. One of the great things about being in a fishbowl at North Central is that it's not a Shark Tank, and there are college campuses where that fishbowl is a Shark Tank, and I think that those campuses living in the president's house might not be very easy, and to do it for years and years. For us, it's been a joy. And for us, the students. Over these years, in my first few years, there were a couple times when the students were a little bit chippy, but basically the students have been incredible, incredibly supportive, incredibly sweet. They just buoy you up every time you see them, and the house has never been viewed as something that they could give a hard time to, so that you haven't felt like the kids were after you. And so what you get living in the middle of that fishbowl is the joy of waking up every day and seeing, the cross-country runners at 6:30 in the morning out in front of your house, and the joy of going out to get your newspapers and having people say, "Hi, Hal," and And of course, you also get the support of an extraordinary group of staff members, ranging from the woman who was basically taking care of our house and taking care of us for most of our 22 years, Jeannie Pudgewood, who was a great person and a fabulous housekeeper. But also from a bunch of physical plant staff. You know, I haven't mowed a lawn in 22 years, and I guess I haven't missed it. I did it a lot in my first 40-some years. But and you know, when things don't work, people come and fix it, and so all of that's been good. When the college started searching for my successor, I think one of the concerns that you know, they talked to all the constituencies of the college, and I think that one of the things they learned was that students, and to some degree even faculty and staff, sort of expect the North Central president to want to live in the middle of campus and to want to be kind of part of everything going on in the campus all the time. And nowadays, that's something that very few candidates to be college presidents want to do. And I think one of the wonderful things and extraordinary things about my successor, Dr. Troy Hammond, is that he and his family really want to live in the middle of campus, just like we did. And I think are greatly looking forward to being in that position. And to them, I would say, you know, what I can say to anyone else, which is that it's a wonderful experience. It's not, you know, it's not without a couple challenges here and there, but it's a wonderful experience. And for us, it's been, you know, we wouldn't have traded it for the world. And I think they're approaching it the same way, which is great, and which will be great for the North Central family in the years to come.
Well, I think you touched on a couple of things I want to follow up on. That everybody calls you Hal, and I think that makes you amazingly accessible to the students, and you've become the students' president, more so than most presidents on other campuses. I hear stories all the time of students who go home, tell their peers about North Central, and the president lives on campus, and I call him Hal. Yeah, well. And I can tell you they're not doing that at other campuses. Why? That's a conscious decision on your part.
Well, you know, when I came, one of the ways that I think about the special character of North Central is that when I first came, students asked me, how should we refer to you? And I thought that was so extraordinary. And so, you know, should we call you Mr. President, or should we call you President Wilde, or should we, you know, and the fact that they asked the question to me said so much about the character of the community. And you know, and I said, you call me anything, call me Hal, you know, whatever, I'm comfortable. And over time, I think that, you know, again, this is the difference between being a president after 22 years and being president in your first few years. When I was a lot younger and probably a little edgier, you know, when they said Hal, it wasn't always in the most polite way. There were, and I think that, you know, I think that it's easy as you get older and stuff. It's easy you become more of a kind of a grandfather figure and stuff, and it's a little different, and the kids relate to you, students relate to you, I think, a little differently too. And you know, I'm grateful for that, but it's not. Again, it's my son. My son says, Dad, you know, when you leave North Central, you're going to have, he said, I'm going to have to give you a gift, because the gift is that, you know, I'm going to hire, we're going to be living in Chicago, and he says, I'm going to hire a bunch of people, and I'm calling them Haladorers, So when you're walking down the street, they'll come up to you and say, "Hi, Hal," like the students do on campus. He said, because you've become so used to people treating you that way. And it's true. It's true. I have been really blessed in the fact that the kids do say that. And as I say, I think, there's a genuine sort of affection there. And obviously on my part, there's a genuine affection as well. So it's been one of the many, many fringe benefits of being the president of North Central.
I kind of think about you and this year, and I kind of think of you as that graduating senior now. That you have a lot of things in common with that graduating senior, that you've had a wonderful experience, and it's warm, and we love you, and we don't really want to let you go, but we know we have to, because you have to move on to bigger and better things. How do you look at the next step, and what is the next step for you?
Well, I kind of, there certainly are analogies, and the fact that our normal graduating senior takes 4 years and it's taken me 22 may speak to something. But I don't, the challenge of thinking about retirement for me is that all of life is stages, but this is a different stage in the sense that obviously some of the things that have driven me over most of my life are accomplishing some goals, raising children, having successful marriage. And I guess I'd have to say that I haven't really thought through in all dimensions what I do when I fall off the cliff, when I'm no longer, when I don't have a bunch of halidors around, and I have to really figure out what are you going to do when you grow up, Hal? In some ways, I've always been somebody who's kind of come up to the edge of a moment and fallen off, and things have happened, wonderful things have happened, and I've been very fortunate. And I kind of think that's going to happen this time too, but I have some volunteer things that I want to do, one involving counseling of inner city kids on college choices, which is something I have a lot of experience in, but mainly for other kinds of kids, and I think it's something I can make a difference on. And one involves some coaching and mentoring of other college presidents, and I think I can be helpful there. And there are things I really look forward to doing, and that I haven't really had time. I've got about, I've given like 3,000 books to the North Central Library, but I have pulled out about maybe, 100, 150 books that along the way I purchased and I either didn't read or I did read and I want to read again. And so I plan on kind of systematically going through all those books and recharging my intellectual batteries, which can use it at this stage. I'm looking forward to spending a lot more time with my wife and doing some things. She loves to travel. Because I'm a big, tall guy and I don't fit very well into airplane seats and stuff, I don't necessarily love to travel as much, but I'm sure we will come up with a compromise which will involve lots of travel.
Well, I hope it involves some writing. I hope it involves keeping in contact with North Central a little bit, because you have made such an impact on the school you love. So.
Well, I think that one of the most important things when I counsel people about their jobs and their leadership, so on and so forth, I usually say that one of the most important things you ever do is how you leave a place. And basically the goal should always be to leave a good taste in their mouths. And part of the good taste in your mouth when you've been a president and have been a kind of figure like I have been so long is that you really want to disappear for a while. And that's not easy because I really do love this place, and I love a lot of things about it, like going to football games and basketball games and theater productions and such. But I think it's important that I disappear for a while, and I will. And again, it's partly because I think that every president and every leader needs to have his or her own space. And when you've been around as long as I have, most of the faculty and staff at North Central have been hired on my watch, so they really only have sort of one model of what a president should look like and act like and stuff. And that's, I mean, the college needs a different model, and I think we got a good one. I think we got a person who'll do a great job as the next president. But that's the point. I mean, a college, you know, it needs new blood, it needs new energy, it needs 21st century perspectives, it needs 21st century skill sets. I mean, I can't. You know, I can't text. My fingers don't work very well. You know, it needs all those things, and as it gets used to those things in a successor, the last thing it needs is to have me walking around and, you know, and kind of casting some sort of shadow. So I'll stay away for a while. Hopefully, I'll get invited back, but that's really pretty much up to the institution. You know, obviously this will always be the school I love, and it will always be a place that will be central and Benna's in my hearts, and it's a place, I mean, it's, you know, there's things, I don't usually look too far down the road, as I suggested, but, you know, when I was in Coton Chapel for homecoming, this last year, and we had the service of the reunion people, I you know, bumped my wife's elbow and said, you know, we should come back here on our 50th wedding anniversary and get remarried in Coton Chapel. And that kind of thing, it's really fun to think about. It is fun to think that this place is, I mean, we've spent over half our married life living on the North Central campus. And for our kids, really, I guess this has been, even though they kind of had grown up to some degree and to a great degree in some cases, they associate this home, they've got more years with this home than any place else along the way. And so, yeah, it will always be a place in our heart, and it will be a place that we will figure out ways to support and advance over the next 20, 30 years, I hope, and whether they're directly on campus or whether they're, you know, from Chicago or wherever.
I'm sure you're going to set a new example of how to do that. So,
well, I hope so. You know, that's one of the things when I think about the people, you know, the mentors that I've had along the way and the people who've influenced me. One wonderful example is Pat Lucey, who's the governor of Wisconsin I worked for 40 years ago. And Pat Lucey is a guy, I mean, he's 94 or 5 now, and he's still doing things. He's still full of you know, vinegar, but he's a guy who, when he was like 70, the doctor told him that he had to change all sorts of things in the way he lived in terms of his eating and his exercise. And he did it.
I was going to say, sounds familiar.
He did it, you know, he just did it, you know, and again, so I think of Pat as an example who was not just an example to me 40 years ago, but he's been an example all the way along his life, and I think that's a lovely model if you can figure out a way that you can continue to be someone that people say, oh, you know, he's figured it out. And so, yeah, with luck, if I'm as lucky as we've been up to this point, we'll figure it out.
I think there's been a little bit more than luck, but thanks for taking time to talk with us today and giving us some thoughts. We wish you and Ben a tremendous future, and I hope to keep in contact.
Good. Our pleasure.
Thank you.